Hello, everybody, indeed. Welcome to the MetaVerse podcast. Episode 31 is the number, and I am Jrow, your host, and we're going back to the new format that I had been working with for the few episodes ago. Past couple episodes, we went for the straightforward single-take recording, but we have two segments for you today on this program. I'll get to them in a little bit. Just want to start quickly with some news and other stuff. The MetaVerse celebrated its 5th anniversary, and that means that the podcast has been over 2 years. So 2 years, 31 episodes, you would think, you guys are slacking, and that would be the truth. But I think we've made better strides this year with the podcast, and hopefully this new format thing continues to work out as I think it will. And some anime news. There was just recently an anime announcement, a new series, BlazBlue Alter Memory. Maybe some of you have played the video game that this future anime will be based off of. It's by Arc Systems Work, who started with the Guilty Gear games. And this is another fighting game series that's being adapted to the anime. And as far as the voice actors are concerned, it looks like pretty much everybody from the video games are going to come into the series. So we're looking at Tomokazu Sugita as Ragna the Blood Edge and all of those other people. So that should be an interesting anime. I played some of the games. I thought the story mode in the first BlazBlue game was way too confusing. There were all these scenarios in which you had to lose some matches and, of course, win matches. In some cases, use your special. It's too much It's too much having to repeat the story and having to create events at certain spots. That's way too much work to get the full story of BlazBlue. And the title is Alter Memory, which pretty much, I guess, makes sense. I don't have the full grasp on the game because I had no interest in doing things 100 different ways. I just want to play the story, I want to win, beat all the characters, so on and so forth. Persona 4 Arena kind of did that the right way, I think, in terms of having everybody's story modes and finding ways to combine them. And of course, what they did with the new character in that game, Labris, was really good. So, obviously we won't have to deal with that when we watch a BlazBlue anime. We'll just see what they consider is the story, or could be a different story, I don't know, but should be a fun time. And speaking of games, E3 will be next month. E3, the big video game event. Things are kind of going to be a little different because Sony and Xbox, by the time E3 has happened, will have already revealed their new systems and really gotten ahead of E3, where you usually expect announcements as big as new video game systems. And Nintendo has mentioned that their presence at E3 isn't going to be anywhere near what it was as we expect from them in previous years, where they have a big conference on the first day of E3. They show off a lot of their stuff. They're having some Nintendo Direct videos on the site and doing some other things at E3. We'll have to see the full extent of what they do during that time when video game news is at its biggest. So MetaVerse will continue our coverage. I would like to continue our coverage in some capacity, so gamers, stay tuned for that. As for the segments that you're going to be listening to following my lengthy introduction, we have the first segment with myself, Fosh, Min, and Sumairii reviewing the anime movie Evangelion 3.33. You Cannot Redo the Quickening. A lot of interesting discussion on that. And then Fosh has a Meta Ask segment with our very own Kyokai in celebration of MetaVerse turning 5. I have a little interview with her, and it's been a while since you've heard her voice on the podcast, so that'll be pleasant for all the people that love Kyokai, and who doesn't love Kyokai. Why don't we save the best for last and start with the Evangelion 3.0 discussion first. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Evangelion 3.0 You Cannot Redo discussion on the MetaVerse podcast. Jrow here, along with Fizzle.
Hey, what's up?
Min.
Hello.
And Smiley.
Hi.
So, the Evangelion movie has been out on Blu-ray for, I believe, a month now, if not a little more. And it's been a much anticipated release, as the first two movies have gotten a lot of critical acclaim over the years. The previous movie had come out in 2010, so it's been a long time since we'd seen an Eva movie. So before we get into discussing the movie, I figure we set up our experience with watching Eva in the past, and mine is, as a relatively new anime fan in like about 2006 or 7, around that time, I went through and watched the Evangelion series because it's one of those series that the hardcore anime fans will tell you it's a classic, you gotta watch it, it's one of the most popular, and it definitely is, and thanks in big part to the movie keeping the name up there in the mainstream. But Evangelion is a series that I really liked, and I remember a lot of people comparing it to Rossifon. Not in exactly the same way, but in some similarities, and some people like one series over the other. That's a completely different discussion. For Shizzle.
Yeah, that's my experience. Is kind of like you. I watched the first couple episodes with my brother and just got kind of addicted to it when it first came out. And I mean, I know I hated on Shinji a lot when I first started watching him. I didn't really like him. I don't think anyone really liked him. And that kind of got me motivated to watch more. So I was like, I want to see if he actually changes. But if you know the series, you kind of know that it really doesn't really happen much with him until the very end. But for the movies, yeah, I just got drawn to those because the animation. Yeah, I think that's the first thing I noticed. They upped the quality and everything. Even some of the old classic fights you like the big cube fight that was redone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the new version is just amazing looking. Plus the soundtrack, and so they got a lot of things going for the movies I like.
Min.
Yeah, so I guess was it was one of the early shows that I watched back in 99, 2000 when I was in 9th grade. I remember I watched it like first 20 episodes with my friend, like overnight, basically staying up. It was like, we put in a DVD, watch it, and we're like, let's watch the next one. Do it again and again until, before we know it, it's 3 a.m. and we've watched basically the entire show. And it really, I think, struck a chord with me. Probably, my age at the time has to do with it. It really is kind of an adolescent, teenage story. I actually liked Shinji. I didn't think he's has his flaws, definitely, but I thought he was a very sympathetic character overall. And I recall after seeing the series, I went on to End of Evangelion, and that one kind of really blew my mind. I still don't really know if I really like it or hate it or what, but I give it a 10 out of 10. It's still one of my, it's a movie worth watching. So,
Smiley, how about you?
Well, like you mentioned before, this is one of those shows that everyone tells you, you gotta watch it. It's if you want to watch anime, And so I actually, having not seen it when it originally came out, actually I might have. Regardless, that was a long time ago, and I didn't see it when it originally came out, and so I kind of had the ability to know kind of about what it was like, and I knew I was getting into kind of a mind screwy kind of a anime, if you will excuse my language there. But having seen through, I've watched, I think, all of them except for was it Rebirth and all that, the recap movies of the TV series. I didn't watch those. I watched through the entire TV series, and then End of Eva, and now we're up to these 3 rebuilds. And so I pretty much followed the whole franchise pretty closely. Big fan mainly because of giant things blowing up, and so that's kind of the main attraction to me, and also some of the more deeper stuff. I mean, without sounding too pretentious, the whole kind of religious stuff that they throw in is kind of a nice kind of a a little kind of a reference that they throw in a lot of the times.
Alright, so let's talk about Evangelion 3.0, You Cannot Redo. Let's start with some spoiler-free impressions, and after that, then we'll start really spoiling the heck out of this movie as much as we can. For me, having loved the first two movies, I thought this one was definitely the weakest in the series. I thought the story presentation, especially in the beginning, I didn't think it was too great. I especially think that Evangelion needs to stop with the long techno-babble-filled introductions. I think this one was even longer than the one in 2.0, but at least in 2.0 they were introducing a new character that had been completely new to the series in Mari. But this one here, it's, there's all kinds of jargon being thrown around that's really unimportant. It kind of reminds me of something that friend of the show Amro has always said about Evangelion, that Hideaki Anno just threw symbolism in there just for fun. Like, it wasn't really that important to the show. But so I think what they did with Kaoru's character in this movie, we'll talk about him later, much more so than in any of the Evangelion series. I thought they did good with his character, but the movie was a step down from the first two, for my opinion, of Fosh Shizzle.
Yeah, I can agree with that. The first two are pretty amazing, and the third one's kind of confusing at the beginning, kind of like, what's going on? Yeah, stuff like that. And you got Shinji, he's doing his thing. But for me, I think I like just the mindless action. I didn't really care too much for the actual plot and story they're doing. But just like Smiley said, the stuff blowing up is really cool in this third movie. And just some of the visual stuff they're doing. They did a good job mixing the CGI with like the animation and stuff like that. And of course, like I said, the music is just gets you going, dude. And for me, I think I like the new character. You have Mari, she's really interesting. Even like you said, Kaoru does this thing in this movie.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much for me. I mean, they didn't really show many angels, so but it's cool.
Min.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a step down from 2. From 1, it's a little hard for me to say, because to be honest, I'm really not sure how to judge 3 at this point. I feel like I'm kind of left hanging, and I haven't seen the full picture yet. That, I guess, it's definitely a negative at this point, because the movie does have to stand on its own. At the same time, I'm kind of willing to give it a chance to see if the 4th movie really, completes it in a way that's satisfying. I thought the action, as you said, Fosh, and Smiley, you alluded to, is that it's really, really good. I mean, 2.2 I thought was basically, it's the best anime movie I've ever seen, and best action anime movie I've seen. And 3, it's not quite up to that level, but it does it very well. I think it's still what you'd expect from this talent. Hideaki Anno is obviously a director, but it's also co-directed by his protege Kazuya Tsurumaki, who you might know from Furikuri and Die Buster, and you can see his sort of stylings in the mech action scenes, which I really liked. But yeah, the story has a lot of weaknesses and a lot of blind spots that make it kind of hard to really, for me to say, yeah, this is a great movie, and so, yeah, I can't say it was as good as 2.
Yeah, I have a point on that, but I'll let Smiley with general impressions on the movie.
As you've all said, I mean, and I think most people would agree that this third movie hasn't exactly lived up to kind of the reputation we were expecting from the first two, and hopefully it's not spoiling too much, but I think there might be some relation to this and kind of how closely tied it was, the whole series has been, to the original TV series. Like, we know that the first movie was basically a recapitulation of, some of the first few episodes. Then the second movie was sort of like that, and then it started diverging, and now we have kind of a completely new story that's thrown in, and I think most of us are kind of scratching our heads, a little uncomfortable with this kind of bold new direction that Anno is taking the series, the franchise towards, and it's just kind of a shady, maybe because it's a new uncharted territory that we've not seen before. We know that he's done great work previously, and we're just not sure if what he's doing now will actually live up to kind of what has been established for the franchise so far. And I have to agree with what Min was kind of talking about, and how we might just have to wait to see what the fourth movie is like. I felt like this whole third movie was just like a very long prologue. Just like we sat through hours of just like material that was setting us up for what's next, as opposed to hours of a material of its own. Granted, it does stand alone on itself, but it was kind of the weakest of the three that are released so far.
Well, I'll actually say that you mentioned my point word for word that I was going to say to Min about the progression of the movie series, that the first was basically the series, and now the third is the first time that it's new. And as for the element of 3.0 being like a long trailer, I didn't really see that. There are some other instances in movies and such, or even games, where you can see things being like a long trailer, but in this one, because it was so on its own, and I don't know, I didn't quite feel the same. So let's turn on the spoiler mode, everybody.
All right.
Sirens.
Yeah.
Something. So we
Release
go into
the Kraken.
So we go into a 14-year time skip. We know how epically movie 2 ended, and then we don't get to really see the fallout of what happens there. It would have been really great to have seen something like the third impact actually happen, but we don't get to, because Ava started the movie the way it chose to.
I find it kind of weird that all the characters are, even it's 14 years later, they all look the same.
Well, they
I mean,
tried to
they-
explain
out
that.
I mean, they try to go with that whole, if you pilot an Eva, you don't age, and that's both, commercially convenient, because that way they can keep selling the 14-year-old, models,
And stay
but
forever
also,
cursed.
it kind of also plays with the, like Shinji's frame of reference, because for most of the movie he's hanging out with Kaoru and trying to hang out with Ray, and they're both, appearing to be 14 years old, so it kind of, instead of him kind of romancing a 28-year-old man, it looks like he's romancing or being romanced by another 14-year-old boy, which makes it-
Kaoru's
makes it-
it's not exactly
Well,
human either.
yeah, that's I mean, in the movies, I think it's kind of still left up to interpretation. But yeah, it looks a lot less creepy, right? If
Right, I mean,
like somebody twice his age is kind of hanging out
Flirting
with them
with
like that.
Gendo
Exactly.
or something. Before
Yeah,
you
a lot of-
should
Yeah,
a lot of
I mean,
shows are doing
with
that.
Gendo you get into a whole other thing, and
Yeah.
of course with Ray you already have the whole
Right.
mother thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I think Misato, she in 2 she was probably in her mid to late 20s, so now she's
Yeah.
probably around
Mhm.
40, maybe mid 40s or late
That's good for a
30s,
40-year-old.
Yeah.
and
She's
like-
a lot more bitter than she was, definitely.
yeah, I think she looks like we didn't really see her face too much, but
Mhm.
I could see a 40-year-old woman looking like that.
She
Time
turned
doesn't
full
seem
Gendo.
to have been as kind to Ritsuko, who was obviously older, as well as Fuyutsuki, who started the show quite old, and then
Yeah,
now
he's-
Looks just about
yeah.
the same.
oh yeah,
Relatively.
yeah. It's like how
Yeah, his favorite pilot.
Alright, if I may interject and bring back to one of the points that Jrow mentioned earlier about how we don't get to really see the third. Was it the third? No, it was the third, right?
Yeah, third
the
impact.
near
Mhm.
third impact was
the
they called
boarded
it.
third impact. Yeah.
And I think this might actually go back to the whole new direction thing. We've already seen an impact. If you've seen End of Ava, we've seen an impact in action. We know. I mean, okay, it could be different in the rebuild universe. Who knows what's going to happen? But we've seen something like this happen before, where the world just goes crap and then everything goes down the drain. maybe quite literally.
Everyone dies.
and then we don't really see what comes after. Like the end of Eva ends, right as what comes after begins. In their case, at least, it might be slightly different because we know in Eva 3, what the kind of toilet flush gets interrupted, sort of.
Well, also,
But
End of Eva was also interrupted because at the end Shinji
was,
decides to go back, but it was
on a
probably
large
interrupted
scale,
at
I
a
think.
much. It was interrupted at a much later stage.
Yeah,
where the
it got a lot
humans
farther.
alive were Shinji and Asuka.
So I think actually that it's not too big of a deal that we don't get to see the impact itself. It would be nice to see, like a newer, fresher interpretation of what it would be like. But I feel like it's kind of good that they took it in the direction. Granted, they still have one whole movie to go. That they took it in this direction where we see what comes after, when everything goes all crappy and well, how is humanity going to survive? What are they doing after this literally apocalypse? I mean, they use language a lot about how this is the end of an era and the start of a new, and it feels like they're kind of the dredges. I mean, they really are the dredges of an old society that's still trying to hold on because I guess terminology used trying to force an evolution kind of got interrupted, and so now everything's kind of stuck in an interim stage, I would say, sort of. That's getting a little too pretentious.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like that. It feels like it's all fresh, it's all new. And yeah, 14 years later, yeah, let's run with it. But I feel like the movie where it fell short is that it really didn't run with it that much. We don't get too much of an explanation for what's going on. We only really see the inside of Lvlln, the ship, or the ship that Misato pilots, and then later we see the inside of Nerve, and then we see an epic battle taking place in the skies, and we don't see the rest of civilization. We don't see the cities. What really is the state of the Earth right now? What really happened? We don't really get a sense of that, and I guess I can see why they did that because Shinji doesn't really know either. At the same time, it's still a little dissatisfying, and I wish they had kind of fleshed it out a little more.
I think because, if I'm correct, the whole movie, I mean, Shinji's basically in every scene, right? Save for the opening with Asuka.
Well, even in that he is there, right? But yeah, it's very much a third person that follows him all the time, yes.
Yeah, and so we're getting the delivery of information, especially about what happened, why we're 14 years forward, and what's going on with Lily, who are now opposed to Seal, and that's where I think, it's very limited what information you can give him. It's just basically everybody angry at Shinji, which is, when you watch it, even people that, whether you hated Shinji or not watching the original series, it's kind of like, you guys could be a little bit cooler about this to him.
Well, he did just kind of screw over the world, admittedly.
Yeah, at the same time, he really, like, Aeroblip from Deus Ex Machina mentioned this when I was talking with him about it with other people, but that the story really hinges on the fact that nobody tells Shinji anything. When he wakes up, they stick a death collar on him and say, never pilot an Eva again, and that he has to ask before they explain, oh, you almost caused the third impact. It's like, just sit him down, tell him, it's been 14 years, this is what happened, and okay, you're a kid, we don't want you to pilot the Eva, go on living, I guess, or whatever. Instead of just kind of antagonizing him and treating him like a lab rat and not letting him know anything, that's the whole reason why he ran off to Nerve and then almost caused the third impact again, because he was following Kaoru's instructions. Again, when he was at Nerve, his father doesn't tell him anything about what's going on. Kaoru, God bless his soul, he really reaches out to him and tries to make a connection, but it's clear Kaoru also doesn't have a full understanding of everything. So, things hinge on miscommunication, and not in a neat way. It's just just tell him just sit down with him and
Yeah.
let him know. That's not that hard. And I think that's like the big flaw for me of the story.
Mhm.
And even, as you say, even with Kaoru, it sounded like he understood and knew what was going on at first, and then it turns out he doesn't, and he's genuinely surprised. Something which we do actually see in the original ones, and then there's the whole miscommunication thing again. Like, he just tells Shinji, "Oh, here, that grand plan that I just told you, don't do it." And he doesn't ever tell
Yeah.
Shinji why. He's just like,
I hate
"Oh,
that.
abort," and then Shinji's like, "Well, no, you told me to do
He's
it."
like, no, screw you, I'm doing
Shinji's
this.
in
Could you
rage
just not-
mode. Yeah.
Yeah, could you just not take the time to explain to him? If you follow through, you'll do it again,
Yeah, and even like Asuka doesn't really say anything to him. She's just like, you idiot, and walks out. Her interaction with him is very limited in this movie. And until the very end, I mean, it's like they finally talk a little bit, but Shinji's still doing his usual. Doesn't know anything.
I
But,
can't believe he punched a girl.
no, right? It's like, what? Oh my god.
That's ridiculous.
And then you have new characters in this. I
Oh,
consider this new Ray to be a new character because she doesn't really act the same way as she used to. So
I mean, she's technically
Yeah.
not the same. Right?
I know
Right,
that.
she's yet another clone.
And then,
I guess.
Yeah, the whole Shinji and Karu on the piano. That whole scene was kind of like, okay, just do them already and get it over with because you're basically hinting at it anyway, right?
I don't know.
I loved how quickly Shinji could pick up that piano. He,
Mhm.
like I actually like that how that scene was done, where they're doing a duet for the first time, and you can see Shinji kind of, shyly pressing the
Mhm.
It
We
kind of
never
reminded
get
me
once in a while,
of the
but it
series
somehow
a little
matched.
bit.
And then all of a sudden, virtuoso.
Well, we
Yeah.
never do get a real passage of time, I don't think. They never really tell us how much time has passed, so he could have been down there a lot, and he doesn't have a lot to do from what we've seen.
Right,
It's
that's what I
either
was
in the
gonna say.
room or playing the piano. So,
Right.
and he was air pianoing too in his room, I think.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny actually, because that at the opening scene of End of Eva, if you remember, that's a very famous scene where he masturbates over
Yeah.
Asuka's naked body. And I was thinking, this is like the masturbation scene here, because
Yeah, exactly.
obviously the piano is a metaphor for sex.
Uh-huh.
And
Right.
he's doing it by himself, in his own room, without
He's
Kaoru.
hanging out with Karu all the time.
You gotta have Shinji masturbate, and
kind of like
Well,
they're dating or whatever. So it's like
problem is
'cause
there's
he
no
always hangs out
unconscious
with him.
girl.
right.
what is the Ray's? Yeah, that Ray's kind of like, she's virtually comatose, right? She's a walking.
Should be into it. I mean, come on.
You just sit there. What are you doing, Shinji?
I'll explain later. Just don't look at me.
Oh goodness.
I would say the piano thing kind of reminded me of early in the series where Asuka and Shinji have to work together and like be in sync.
Oh,
That's what
yeah.
kind of reminded me of that
Yep.
because they have to use that with the new Eva they build. I mean, they have this double cockpit thing where they both have to kind of be in sync to use this new machine.
Yeah, that
So
was
I
a
was
very
kind
nice
of cool. I'm like, that's an interesting way of doing it. Or having the double pilot thing like that.
I actually like this whole double pilot thing better than the one in the TV series. 'Cause that was really corny. You're
Yeah.
doing like a dance routine to defeat like a powerful alien entity
Uh-huh.
that could just launch laser beams from its eyes and kill
Just
things
play-
with explosions of crosses, and you're
Just play
just dancing.
DDR. I mean, DDR if you want to save the world. That's your key.
Should make an anime of that. DDR
Yeah, what-
saves the
Well, yeah, one thing I didn't get was that double Ava. They don't really explain it, because in the other Avas in the show, each one was unique. Each one had the soul of a certain individual in it, and this one, it's like it's just an Ava with two cockpits right next to each other.
Have
What's
they
the deal?
confirmed the whole soul thing in Ava for the Ava movies though? I'm not
Oh.
sure if they have.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess actually that's a good point. I think they at least didn't they mention that Yui's soul was in Ava Unit 1?
Yeah, we know that much.
Yeah.
We don't know anything about any of the other Evas or the pilots. I mean, we could construe from the TV series, but that's the TV series. So no one knows what's going on with Rebuild.
I just had the picture of it. Yui from K-On! Her soul in a robot.
That would be the
Uh,
klutziest robot ever. Just trip over nothing.
So Moe.
It should still win, right?
Yeah.
Headbutt the angel,
Very
destroy
good.
its glory.
or guitar.
I did like the design where it had a satellite around it, basically, doing all the defense, so that when Asuka was trying to attack it, it was blocking it all along.
Mhm.
And
That was-
also,
yeah, that's true.
one of the main things that we've seen a lot from this whole rebuild series is that they'll throw, and understandable, maybe it's the time frame thing, but they'll throw in things in the previews, and Eva's, the rebuild of Eva is infamous for this. They'll throw in things in the previews for the next movie, and then they'll just never do it, or they'll ignore it.
Yeah.
I remember in the trailer for Eva 3 from Eva 2, they were talking about how the double Eva pilot thing that Shinji and Kaoru were in, they mentioned it was like quaking or something. I don't remember exactly what word it was. And I was on this Eva
Well,
forum, and they were making
Eva
a big
3
deal about,
subtitle was Q, quickening.
yeah, and quickening. There we go, not quaking, quickening. And they were making a big deal about the interpretation of quickening, something about how it was giving birth or something. I don't remember. And then there's just there's nothing really about it in this movie, or maybe we're missing it. Who knows?
Yeah. Now, I mentioned this in the spoiler-free part, but I still do think the action really is just over the top awesome. The opening scene, I thought was a great way to start it. Really, the fight in space against this angel that is just crazy looking, and I think the movies overall have just done a great job making the angels look like some otherworldly, unfathomable, almost Lovecraftian kind of beings that, and they use CG very well to that effect. And what I really like about the way the action scenes are done is that they have a real sense of desperation to them, that nothing is off the table in order to achieve their goals, that the angels will do everything possible to stop them from getting at the core. In this case, the core would ride along its tentacles in a way that prevented Asuka from getting it, and also the good guys, the Avas and their pilots, will stop at nothing to get their job done. I believe in the opening scene, Asuka's Ava unit gets her arm blown off.
Oh yeah.
And at the end, she actually abandons her Ava to do a self-destruct attack. And there's really no hesitation about it. It's just you got to get the job done, and you got to make any sacrifice necessary. And there's a real, palpable sense of, I want to say desperation here. That, yeah.
Let me go back to your point on the angels. Actually, it feels like in Eva 3, the angels have a much smaller presence. I mean, up until Eva 3, they were the main antagonists. Everything is, stop the angels. They're gonna destroy everything. Whereas in this movie, they've kind of been demoted to kind of a mook, kind of a goon, kind of an evil red shirt kind of a role, where they're just kind of harassing Wily and really not doing much to threaten mankind. Maybe it's because the impact has happened and they're thinking along the lines of mankind's already kind of in a bad shape. But it really feels like the angels have a very small presence in this movie, and I wonder if it will stay this way in the fourth, and that it will continue to just be kind of an Ava. Because if you think about it, in Ava 3, it was almost completely Ava on Ava kind of battles, and that we don't really see that much aside from the Battle of Bardiel, which you can't really count as Ava on Ava because that was an angel possessing one of the Avas. So I thought this was kind of an interesting new thing that they brought in.
Yeah, actually, when in that opening sequence after Shinji wakes up, when they activate the ship powered by Eva Unit 1 and defeat Angel, I thought, hey, maybe this show is kind of pivoting to a show or this movie series is pivoting to one where it's like we have mass-produced Evas fighting lots of angels coming up at once. They are like the fiends that you see on grounds in like Final Fantasy games. They just pop up every once in a while, and you have to fight them. That didn't turn out to be the case, but it has that feeling where man's greatest enemy is man again, not some otherworldly force.
All right. So, is there anything else to spoil about the movie? Maybe the thing where Kaoru takes Shinji's neck brace thing and decides that I'll wear it. Death flag
yeah.
right there.
I'm not gonna throw it away. I'll just wear it on myself.
And what? 15 minutes later, he blows up.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Pretty
Yeah.
gruesome death too.
Yeah.
It's got a
So
Saw
I
as
hope
much as
he's-
you could animated.
I hope they don't try to bring him back or anything. I hope Dead is
That
dead.
would be
because- That was like a.
His
I
soul's
really
the robot,
liked
man.
just how brutal that looked.
Mhm.
Just bam.
Well, the whole point, it
Yeah.
felt like, and another whole point of the movie was just Gendo getting rid of Kaoru, and of course everything is going according to Gendo's plan, and you
It
know,
always is.
if Gendo kills someone off, he's not returning, at least not in the flesh.
Yeah, and the only thing else I would mention is probably Mari. She's a cool character, but she doesn't really do much in this movie.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
was
she's
remembering,
mainly
like,
a sniper and a support role, it seems.
Mhm.
yeah, and she kind of trolls Asuka a little bit here and
Just
there.
no sense of urgency
It's
whatsoever.
like almost, yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah,
Conflicting
exactly.
with the desperate theme of the movie that Min pointed out.
Mhm.
You know, it's everyone's Ava arms getting blown off, Ava heads getting chopped off, and she's just in her little
Drinking
corner
tea.
being
Mhm.
a camper.
She was just
It's
drinking
kind of
tea.
weird
yeah.
because in the second movie, to me, she kind of felt like a breath of fresh air because she was
Uh-huh.
a brand new character and she had this more upbeat personality as
And
opposed
she was
to everybody
super
else.
intense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
by the end of
because-
that movie.
man.
and
Yeah,
then
the
it feels
climax of that movie when she,
Mhm.
with her arm off, she bites through the AT field, and
like, mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, that's another big failure of the movie, I guess, is that Mari, who in 2 she was introduced, and we're like, all right, we don't know anything about her, but we'll see something about her next, right?
Mhm.
And 3, we're hoping for that, but no, she's
Yeah.
still just in the shadows, sniping and making some jokes here and there, but not
Mhm.
really doing much in terms of
And it doesn't-
who is she? Where did she come from? And why is she hanging
Yeah.
out with Lvlln? I don't know.
Yeah, and she doesn't just in general the theme of Evangelion 3.0, she doesn't really fit into it really any.
Yeah, that's true.
You're gonna say though, the way it ended with basically the 3 main pilots, Shinji, Asuka, and Ray, are together now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They're
you know,
going for a
through-
walk.
The
Yeah,
Red Desert.
Right, they're in some abandoned place away from the others, so they're gonna go on an adventure, I guess. Let's see what comes of that. And
Where is
New-
Mari
new-
anyway?
New flight suits, man. New flight suits. Like, really awesome. I just drew one of them on a different character a couple days ago, and I was like, these designs are really cool.
Yeah, maybe Mari will come along in the next movie and save them. or-
Mari's
who knows?
building a red sandcastle right now. She's
No, it's
waiting
like
for
because in the trailer in the next movie preview at the end of this one, they were showing what looks like half Mari's
fusion,
Ava
yeah.
and half Asuka's Ava
Mhm.
fighting
Ah,
a
but
whole
you see-
bunch of mass-produced Ava units.
But you
Yeah.
see, this is
Smiley
another
said.
preview.
But,
Of
I mean,
what's- yeah.
every
The word
from
for
what I
movie's yet to
recall,
be
every
determined.
animation in the preview actually did show up in the movie.
I don't know about that. I know they redesigned Mari's Ava of the 3 from the trailer. They redesigned, at least the first trailer. They redesigned the double Ava for the movie. I know it looked
Mhm.
different in the trailer, so
Yeah.
I feel like when you see something in the preview, when you see something in the preview, odds are it'll change.
And when there's so much time in between movies, you have time to rethink things and maybe do some redesigns or.
That is a good point because supposedly the next movie is coming out much sooner than we expected. I think it was either the end of this year or next year. It's much faster time frame than between
hope
2 and
so.
3. So maybe that might suggest that what Min says is true and it will be faithful to the preview. That's likely.
So, yeah. Speaking of the preview,
I think it'd be
like,
cool if they made Mari like the main character for the
Yeah,
next movie.
that's what I'm
Just
thinking.
followed it from her perspective the whole
that'd
time.
be pretty cool.
Although I think ultimately this is Shinji's series, so it'll probably just end up
Mhm.
following.
And maybe we'll get that Yuri service between her and Asuka.
Yeah, they keep promising it in the previews.
I know, it's like,
stay tuned
God,
for fan service or something
Just
like
do
that.
that already.
I also appreciate that they still have Misato as the preview person, and she
Mhm.
always keeps saying service.
Right.
It's just a
Compared to how
tradition from
And how
the
she acts
show.
like in the movie now, it's like,
Lies.
you act so differently. Why are you doing this? So mean. She was rocking those glasses though, new pair of glasses she's wearing. I'm like, dang. So
Yeah, I mean, seriously, I thought she looked a bit like the badass of what is it? Simon in the opening
yeah,
scene
yeah.
of Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann. She's
Yep.
awesome, space pirate captain kind of deal.
Yeah. She still won't be as cool as Kamina though. Who knows? Maybe.
Who can be as cool as Kamina, really?
Yeah, no one can.
Yeah, he died before he could get any uncool, so he was at his peak.
Gurren Lagann spoil. Sorry.
Gotta cut that out now.
Spoiler for a show that's been around for 6 or so years, or 5 maybe.
I'm guessing if you're into if you're listening to this, you're probably aware.
And we're still waiting on Penny Stocking season 2.
That's never gonna happen.
I know.
All right, I think we're trailing a little off here, so close off the Evangelion discussion. A step down, confusing, some parts entertaining, action looks sensational, CG work was great, and
Lots of BL for the girls to fall for.
yeah, you had a BL with the 2 boys.
Music's good as usual.
Mm-hmm. Y'all have to put some of that underneath our discussion.
The same guy does the Bleach music. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Go figure. How many more anime can we mention before this segment is over?
Look, Magica. You'll find that.
No
Just
more.
start throwing names out.
Attack on Titan.
Let's
Eren.
go to the next segment. Next segment.